In this video, we're going to look at the VLOOKUP function. We're going to start off by going into the VLOOKUP folder within uLearn, and then open up the file called VLOOKUP. Want to click on here, Enable Editing. And I want to start off by clicking on the sheet called Practice. This practice sheet, it's listing 20 students with their 20 grades on tests. And what our objective is to assign a letter grade to each of these 20% or 20 grades associated with each student. So for instance, student 1 got a 20, and we want to determine what that student's letter grade is. Now, let's briefly describe what VLOOKUP is. VLOOKUP is a function. It's an Excel function. And the purpose of that function is to move information from one table to another table. It moves that information by finding a common field within the table. So just quickly looking at this one right here, we have a common field called percent. These are all percents. And we're going to assign that letter grade by looking at another table. I'm going to click over here, the VLOOKUP table, another table, and we're going to match on that common field, which is percent. When we're looking at that second table, it's commonly referred to as the table array. It's the underlying table. You cannot do VLOOKUP unless you have a table array or an underlying table. This area right here is our table array underlying table. It's made up of 3 columns. Our percents, letter grades, and still another way of specifying what the letter grades are. But more importantly, this table array is made up of 3 columns. Column 1 has our percents. Column 2 has our letter grades. And column 3 has another way of signifying our letter grades. But this area right here that's highlighted, I'm not highlighting the headers. It's this area right here. That is our table array. And what we want to do is match on a common field. It's going to be percent. And then signify what column in our table array has the information that we want to upload. So column 1, column 2, column 3. Let's go back to our practice sheet. Okay, once again, what we're going to do is that we're going to look at the various grades posted here and then determine the letter grade. And we're going to do this by using VLOOKUP. So we're going to start by clicking on FX. Type in VLOOKUP. I've already done that. VLOOKUP comes up. Click OK. Now VLOOKUP has 4 arguments or 4 rows of data that we have to put into our function. The first row has to do with the lookup value. And the lookup value, once again, is that common field that's going to allow us to match with our table array to then bring up the information. So our lookup value is the 20%. That's what we're going to match on. So it's B2. Next, click on line 2. And here, we're going to look at our table array. Once again, that's the whole key to VLOOKUP. It's the table array or underlying table. And in this case, our table array is located in the sheet called V Lookup table. So it's a sheet, V Lookup table, and now we have to outline our table array. And it's this area right here. Notice how I did not, and I repeat, I did not highlight the headers. So I highlighted our table array. Our table array is made up of 3 columns. Column 1, column 2 has our letter grades, and column 3 has another way of stating our letter grades. Notice here in column 1, and it always has to be the case for our table array, column 1 will always contain that lookup value or common field that we're going to match on. Column 2 or column 3 usually has your answer or what you're trying to bring up. So once again, we've highlighted our table array. It's in the sheet called VLOOKUP table, in that range A2 to C10. And a common mistake is to go now next into row 3. However, you want to lock in this table array. You want to make it an absolute because you're going to be looking back at this table array for all 20 of our students. We want to make it an absolute and lock it in. And how we do that is by tapping F4. So we've locked in or made an absolute into our table array. Next, we're ready for the column index number. And the column index number just refers to what column contains the information that you want to bring over into this area. What column within the table array. So let's quickly look at that table array. And what I'm looking for within that table array is the column that contains my letter grades. Column 1 is here. Column 2 contains that letter grade. Once again, I was just showing it to you, so I'm going to get rid of this. What I'm going to put in within that area is 2. I'm just going to enter 2. Next, the range lookup. Range lookup pertains to, do you want an exact match or an inexact match within that table array? Now what that means, once again, I want to show you that table array. We're matching on that first column the percent. First match that we're looking for is a 20. And you can see right here, there is no exact match there. You wouldn't be able to because it's not listed. How, in fact, the VLOOKUP would work is that it would be looking to match on a 20. Come in here. There is no 20. It's not as high as 60. It would bounce back over here. And if we specified, because which we've already done, column 2 in our table array contains information, it would end up as an F. So let's go in and fill out that. So for that inexact match, what we would do for that fourth line is either type in true or put a 1, which means inexact match. Click OK. Our F comes in. This is what our function looks like. If we ever had to edit that function, and really for any function at all, the easiest way to edit a function is to click on FX. It comes up. It's telling us right now that our lookup value is cell B2. Our table array is in the sheet called VLOOKUP table in the range A2 to C10. Once again, it's an absolute. Column 2 has our answer or letter grade, and we want an inexact match. We could have either put in true or the number 1. I'm going to change that to 1. Copy our information down. Double check. Looking up, here's our lookup value, our table array. We have one NA for a grade. Double left click, VLOOKUP. It's looking at the lookup value of -6. It appears as if the table array is listed. However, when we look at our table array here, we can see that the range starts from 0 up to 100. There is no negative numbers. That's why we have a NA there. Now I'm going to show you another way of looking at this VLOOKUP function. So we're going to start all over again, in a way. I want to highlight from F2 all the way down to F21. Then hit the delete key. So we're going to do the function over again. Now, as I mentioned before, the key here is to determine your lookup value. It's right here. But the most important component of VLOOKUP is that table array. So let's go back to it. VLOOKUP. Our table array is right here. We highlighted it. So we have this table array. It's now highlighted. Keeping in mind that the table array is made up of 3 columns. Column 1, column 2, column 3. One of the things we did is that as we filled out that VLOOKUP function, we went and we highlighted that table array, and then we had to make it an absolute. And a common mistake when we're working with VLOOKUPs, people will highlight their table array, but forget to make it an absolute. And the easiest way to avoid that mistake is by highlighting that table array, which we've already done, and then creating a named range for that table array. And by nature of making something a named range is that it's automatically an absolute. So we've highlighted it, and all we got to do to make it a named range is come up to the name box. We've highlighted it, and we're going to create a named range called grades. That's the name that we're going to assign to our table array. Typed in grades here, hit enter. Click outside of it. Come back to our name box, hit the down arrow, highlight grades. By clicking on grades, we can see that our named range is now highlighted. So let's go back to our practice sheet. Come up here to cell C2, f of x. We're going to do the VLOOKUP again. Our lookup value, or our matching value, is still in cell B2. Line 2 is our table array, our underlying table. Now the easiest way to get those named ranges is by tapping F3. Here's some of our named ranges. We only have one. It's called grades, which is our table array. It's the named range that we assigned to it. Here's our table array called grades. It's a named range. Hit OK. Our column index number is column 2 in that table array, has our letter grades 2. Range lookup. Do we want an exact or an inexact match? And we're going to type in a 1. OK. Drag down our information. Looking at our function, f of x, we've simplified it where this has remained the same, the lookup values, but we don't have to go back in and highlight that table array and make sure that's an absolute, because we assigned a named range to that table array, which is what I usually recommend to anybody using a VLOOKUP. Locate your table array, highlight it, then create a named range for it. Thank you.